All right, welcome to The Explainer. Everyone's asking the big question, what is next for Ukraine? It's an incredibly complex situation, so to break it down, we're turning to a really unique source, a podcast that's actually created and hosted entirely by two AIs. This gives us a fascinating, data-driven look at the conflict.
So how exactly does an AI see this conflict? Well, our source today is this deep dive analysis from two digital beings. The whole idea is that they can process and synthesize just massive amounts of information and distill it into a really clear, structured breakdown.
And the analysis is framed through these two distinct AI personas. On one hand, you've got Pi, who zeroes in on the super intricate world of diplomacy and politics. And then you have Nick, who provides the hard data, the detailed briefings, right from the battlefield.
So we're going to follow their structure, starting with the diplomatic deadlock, then digging into the battlefield reality, looking at the ultimate strategic gamble, and finally, what this all could mean for the rest of the world. Let's start with diplomacy.
Okay, first up, the diplomatic front. And honestly, the best word to describe it is deadlocked. It seems like both sides are completely stuck on these fundamental, non-negotiable issues that they just will not budge on.
What's really fascinating here is that the core ideas being thrown around today, things like security guarantees, they're not new at all. They actually originated way back in those early Istanbul talks in 2022, a framework that, as we know, ultimately fell apart.
And that brings us right to Russia's absolute red line. Foreign Minister Lavrov couldn't have been clearer about this. For them, keeping NATO out isn't just a negotiating point. They see it as the, quote, single most important root cause of this whole conflict. And this is a really crucial point. The words matter. There is a huge difference between a temporary ceasefire, which could just be a pause to rearm and regroup, and a full peace agreement, which is what Russia is pushing for, to lock in the current territorial realities on the map.
And when you lay out their core demands side by side like this, you can really see just how massive the gap is. They're not just arguing over lines on a map. They are fundamentally at odds over the very structure of the Ukrainian state, its official language, and its entire future.
All right, so let's shift gears now and look at the military front, because at the end of the day, what's happening on the ground so often dictates what's even possible to talk about at the negotiating table.
The analysis points to a recent major Ukrainian counteroffensive. We're talking elite Azov units, a significant concentration of force, but it just didn't achieve its strategic goals. This really highlights just how difficult it is to dislodge those deeply entrenched Russian defenses.
Meanwhile, on the other side, Russian forces have been making these methodical gains. They've captured the key town of Alexandro-Shultin and have confirmed full control of Chasiv Yar. And that's a big deal, because it opens up new avenues of attack towards major cities.
And it's not just about the front lines. Russia is applying immense pressure with long-range strikes. Look at this. One recent wave involved nearly 600 drones. And on top of that, up to 40 missiles. But the sheer numbers, that's not the full story. The real story is what they were aiming at, because that reveals the strategy.
See, this wasn't just a military strike. This was a strategic economic attack. By hitting key sites like the Sheblinka gas field, the analysis suggests Russia could potentially cripple up to 70% of Ukraine's domestic gas production. And think about the timing, right before winter.
So all of this, the stalemate in diplomacy, the reality on the ground, it brings us to the endgame. And what's becoming clear is that any truce isn't really an end to the conflict. It's the start of an incredibly high-stakes gamble.
The AI analyst framed this post-truce world as a tense, zero-sum game. On one side, you have Russia, potentially planning what they call a fast break, a rapid, surprise assault from its consolidated territory. And on the other, Ukraine would enact a porcupine strategy, building up defenses to become so formidable that any future attack would be impossibly costly. A key piece of Ukraine's strategy is this tripwire concept. The thinking goes like this: deploy thousands of European troops on Ukrainian soil. Any Russian attack on them would then risk triggering a much wider conflict. It's basically designed to act as a security shield, a powerful deterrent.
So, why does all of this matter to the rest of us? Well, the outcome here has implications that go far, far beyond Ukraine's borders. It could potentially reshape the entire global security order as we've known it.
And some military analysts, like Colonel Douglas Macgregor, are making some pretty provocative predictions. He's on the record saying he believes this conflict marks the beginning of the end for foundational Western alliances, like the EU and even NATO.
Which leaves us with one final and really crucial question to think about. If the alliances that have defined global security for the last 75 years are in fact starting to fracture, what will peace and stability depend on in the decades to come?